Hey, and welcome everybody to another episode of Mac Yak. This is episode
Hello,
number
hello, hello.
78 for July 2nd. So say hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
And
Sound test, sound
if you
test.
notice the guy that's all the way to the far right, upper right, he is our guest tonight, Dan Brashear, and you are the one of the moderators at Low and Mac, aren't you?
Yes, moderator for 11 years on Mac. I'm happy to be
All right,
here.
well, tell us a little bit about yourself, so before we get started here.
I've been on
Sanders echo.
Echo.
Super echo, not just the echo, super echo.
Super
I'm
echo.
curious
How about
now
now?
what super echo sounds like.
How about now?
Do you hear me
Testing
now?
1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3.
We good now?
We should be good.
Okay. Anyway,
Yes.
All right. They say it's good.
okay. So anyway, I've been just writing for 11 years on the Mac. Been playing with Apple stuff for since I was a kid. I got 2C plus and 86, 87. So about 33 years playing around with Mac. So IT professional by trade, senior business analyst. So I do quite a bit of stuff with just computing in general, and just love getting the most out of my Macs at home.
Ah, cool. And to be honest with you guys, he's a last minute ad. I mean, I think we decided to put him on in the last less than an hour ago.
I just, guys, I got off work and then I was like, I want to talk about this Titan Ridge, so we'll get
Yep.
into that later.
Yeah, we're going to get into that later. But anyways, guys, how's everybody been doing this past week? I know we were gone last Thursday. We didn't do a show last Thursday, so we haven't been here since last Monday when they did WWDC.
Yep.
Right.
So we don't have Grudy with us tonight. We don't have Mike, and we don't have Steve. Steve is trying to forego the wrath of his wife. If
Be a
he-
good husband. Yes.
Exactly, because it is his wife's birthday. So wish the Mrs. Steve a happy birthday. So
Mrs. Steve.
That's beautiful.
yeah. So anyways, yeah, he doesn't want to endure the wrath. So that's what he told us, at least. He'd rather live.
Fair enough.
Damn.
For this week until she sees the additions in the basement.
Well, no, she probably doesn't go down there. She probably just says, "That's your thing, and I'm not touching that." So I think all our wives probably do the same thing. My wife doesn't care what I put in here, except when I bring stuff in from recycle. She's like, "Another one?"
As long as I keep it into either my office or the basement, I'm safe. If a screw falls on the floor and accidentally rolls into the hallway, I'm screwed. Though.
At least you have a basement.
Yeah. Exactly. At least you have a basement. I live on the fourth floor of an apartment building, so that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Speaking of basements, I finally got my old floor removed. They come in last Wednesday and tore all that out. And in so doing, discovered that there was some moisture behind one of the cinder block walls. So I spent a good day this week, it was this week, tearing down the old paneling and stuff, getting some new paneling to put up.
Well, that's cool.
Got all that nice black mold going there.
It was a little bit, not too bad. I have to take a couple of pieces of wood out, but other than that, it was. The cinder block was a little damp, so I'm going to seal it with some Drylock, and then they're coming on the 20th to put the new floor in. So
Nice. And the 21st, we're going to see some videos with Dana doing stuff.
Yeah, because I don't think we've seen any videos of Dana does stuff
No.
yet, have we?
Dana,
I've
not
got a
done
couple
any stuff.
recorded. I haven't
No evidence that he does stuff at all.
fired up.
Dana doesn't do stuff, right?
Well, he might, but we just can't confirm or deny it.
There
Yeah.
we go. Anybody
Videos-
else before
oh,
we move
just
on?
haven't fired up Final Cut Pro yet.
Nothing exciting, just working, organizing. I've been on a labeling spree. I think I went through like 3 rolls of labels.
Speaking of
Label.
labels, I actually had to order some because I ran out on my P-Touch.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's it. Time is flying by.
All right, guys. So, first thing is news and announcements. One of the big news that came out, I guess, is Apple begins offering a new Radeon Pro W5500X GPU option for the Mac
It's
Pro.
easy for you to say.
Yeah, the 5500X. Should say that.
Yeah.
So it actually is actually probably a very good GPU for the Mac Pro. I mean, I'm actually surprised they didn't go with the 5700, which is surprising, but you know, the W5500 is probably just as good. Now, does anybody know anything about it? Because I mean, I didn't put this news in here, so who put that in here?
I put it in here, but I was hoping someone else would know about it.
Ah,
No such luck. Go, Bruce.
yeah, it's your baby.
Yeah, so Apple's added a new option.
Well, regardless of performance, I don't know. I haven't kept up with it since the new Mac Pro came out, and we talked about it a few episodes. But from the testing I saw, 8 cores, 28 cores, 1 GPU, 4 GPUs, the tiebreaker is usually the Afterburner card.
Yeah.
At least it was in the early days of test coming out. So I don't know if that's changed, if this card is a game changer, but
Well, here's a question I got too, and Dan, you might be able to answer this since you're good at all this stuff. Is the Afterburner card? A lot of people have been asking if it can be actually be used in a 5.1 Mac Pro.
I really wouldn't know. Did you say Dan or Dan?
What do we have you on for? No, just kidding.
Well, I mean, I love my 5.1, but you know, these Afterburner cards, they're not really like a standalone GPU to my knowledge. Isn't that an accelerator? So it's using
Yeah.
using a proprietary bridge, kind of like I would make it akin to like Apple's proprietary SLI or something like that, where it's actually bridging off those
do
compatible.
you know of
GPUs.
anyone that has attempted?
I don't think I know nobody I know. If anybody's going to try it eventually, I would think Mark would probably give it a go. He really loves pushing the boundaries.
So just to clarify with that news story is the 5700 is an option. And basically, the entry level was the 580X, and then the next step up was the 5700. The 5500 was added in as an in-between option. So
Okay. So the 5700 is actually the top end.
yeah,
Because it's the same as the graphic card I have in here, except I think it's the Pro version versus what I have.
You don't have an X.
No, I have an RX 5700 XT.
Mm,
Okay.
yeah,
so
that's not as good.
No, it
Yeah.
probably has more memory and probably is a little more overclocked, but it's the same GPU pretty much, just a little bit better.
And you're happy with yours, right? It's
Yes.
performing well.
It's performing well. It doesn't get the full benefit because it's PCIe 4 standard, but it does work in the Mac Pro, you know, the older Mac Pros, but it's just not as fast as it could be. In other words,
Right.
it's limited to what my computer can send to it right now.
The Mac Pros were PCIe V2, right?
Yep. hmm
Yeah.
Okay.
On 4.1, 5.1, 3.1 has 2 slots that are 2 and 2 slots that are 1.1. 1.1, 2.1 are 1.1 only.
Yeah, but the 16 lane port is the 2.0 one, and there's 2 of those in the Mac Pro, and then
3.1.
Huh?
3.1, it's that way. On the 4.1, 5.1, it has all slots are 2.0.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah.
But there's but the top 2 slots I think on the 5.1, 4.1 are 4 or 8 lane. I can't remember, but I know they're not 16 lane.
It's top
I
lane.
think we got 2 16s, 1 8 and 1 4.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think you're right.
No, while you guys are on upgrades, did you know the MacBook Pro, the 16-inch current model? Last week they pushed the Radeon 5600 with 8 gigs of HMB2 RAM. So,
Well, that means I wonder how they're cooling it now. 'Cause
Yeah, it'll throttle even harder.
probably will.
Because I mean, to be honest with you, the MacBook Pros, I mean, I opened up mine. I mean, it's using the same exact heat pipe going from the CPU to the GPU, going
Yeah.
to one heat sink.
Mhm.
So it's not like it's
Hey, at
separate.
least it's not a MacBook where the heatsink is not connected to anything.
And well, it's because there's no
With a
fan.
fan.
So, well, I mean, with these new ARM chips coming out, you never know. I mean, they might be making these fanless MacBook Pros now.
Dude, I'm
It'll be an
I don't know.
iPad generation too.
Let's see, we're 11 minutes in and I'm already going off topic. Usually I do it sooner, but I see a lot of complaining and fear mongering and all this stuff about AMD, and I get it. Nobody's happy that their Intel stuff is going to be obsolete sooner.
You mean ARM, not AMD.
Yeah, that one. But when it comes time for me to buy a new Mac 10, 15 years from now, I'd be all for a 55 core ARM chip that only runs up to 50 degrees Celsius.
Well,
I'd love it.
Since we're talking about that, let's go ahead and get into our next topic, since that actually kind of segues into it, is the ARM.
See what I did there?
Yeah, ARM
Yeah.
benchmark. So, yeah, I've been reading the same stuff, Jay, and a lot of people are wondering how is it actually going to perform. Now, according to 9 to 5 Mac, the first benchmarks against the Surface Pro, okay, the Microsoft Surface Pro, it puts the Surface to shame.
Well, I
They,
would hope so.
yeah, they did some benchmarks on it, and it was like, it put it to shame. It totally blew the Surface out of the water. So, what does this mean? Could mean that, hey, the new MacBook Pros are going to be way better, but how is that going to translate to a desktop machine? That's my worry about it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know anything apart from my deep, deep hate for Windows. That's all I know about Windows. But how is... I understand that Windows has been running on ARM chips for a while, or
No.
at least been compatible.
No, they only ran them one time. They had an ARM version that actually Microsoft came out with their first version of Surface, had an ARM processor. It was actually the low end version. They had an Intel version that was thicker and had a fan built into it. The ARM version looked almost like an iPad. It didn't have a fan or anything like that, but it was a lot slower. And they actually had a special build of Microsoft Windows for it. And that actual version didn't really take off because other OEMs were building better ones. So that ARM one just kind of got tossed to the wayside, you might want to say.
That version
Okay.
is still produced.
Is it still
That-
produced?
the-
I don't
They
think
don't
it's,
use it necessarily in the consumer market, but it is utilized in like point of sale and stuff like that.
Oh,
No,
point
it's,
of sale. There, okay, it's a cash register then.
But, and I can't believe I'm doing this. I don't know, I must have fever or something. But to give Windows a fair shake, was this Mac Mini developer kit tested against the latest and greatest
Yes.
ARM,
Mhm.
Windows, whatever the
No,
hell
it was
they could find?
tested. It was tested against the latest Surface Pros that they have, which is Intel based, and it
Oh, okay,
it
gotcha,
beat
gotcha.
them out of the water. Not the ARM. The ARM stuff was just crap, anyways. The Microsoft ARM Surface was beat by the Intel systems. Okay, so if this is beating the Intel versions, it's definitely going to beat the Microsoft ARM versions. No, hands down, no problem.
I also want to see AMD included in these tests. Like everybody's been saying, including us, like, hey, Threadripper beats Intel, this and that.
I want to see
how
that too.
ARM stacks up against.
I mean, I think
AMD.
the thing with this benchmark, I mean, this is a benchmark done on the little, developer kit mini, which is obviously not being sold as a performance machine or anything like that. And from the results that I've seen, it's not spectacular, but it's better than I was thinking it would be. So I mean, time will tell what's going to happen when they start releasing more, sort of more of the powerful computers. But I think for this one, it's reasonable.
Well, I remember Jay last week on Monday, he was like, I want to see the benchmarks. That was what Jay was talking about. I want to see the benchmarks. Now we're starting to see some benchmarks, and it's looking very promising, but I still have reservations about a desktop. I mean, using these in MacBook Pros, maybe it'll work, but for a desktop version, you want more raw processing power. And unless they're putting a buttload of cores in that thing, I don't see it working too well in the Mac Pro or something similar to that. even an iMac.
So-
you know?
Jake is saying in the chat that this was a comparison of the current iPad CPU, the A12Z,
Mhm.
not the custom one that they've been working on, and it was against the Surface Pro X. Using Rosetta 2.
Yeah, using Rosetta, which basically means
So it's not even.
it was translating on top of that.
Yeah,
So can you
it was
imagine if it was just
translating?
if they had
Yeah,
a raw Geekbench score that was built for the ARM?
Wow.
I mean, it's promising. Yeah, kind of promising. I mean, 800 single core. But if you compare it to, like the article says, compare it to a MacBook Air, the worst product they ever made, it gets a score of 1005 single core. And we already know that compared to AMD and other systems, single core performance on Intel has been terrible for at least a decade.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're going to shave even more performance off that single core. Yeah, it does fine in multi-core, but if you take just the basic apps in macOS, Mail, Notes, Calendar, they're all single core apps. So, I hope they manage to improve that a little.
I hope so too. I mean, to be honest with you, I think a lot of these developers need to start using multi-core in their programming because having single core is the past. To be honest with you, I mean, we've been
Yeah.
multi-core for how many years now, and a lot
Yeah.
of these programs still want to use single core or single threads. They don't want to use multi-threads. You know, because to be honest with you, programmers are lazy.
Oh,
Hey,
oh.
Looking at you, Adobe.
Am I right, Bruce?
yeah.
So I wasn't wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of has to do with the way when you're sort of, programming for multi-core, the way that you actually deal with it when you're writing something. There's work involved, and I would question whether some products whether you can even utilize sort of multi-core for some things. But yeah, I mean, there is definitely a laziness component there.
I mean, to be honest with you, why even have all these cores if you can't even use them in real life? You know, I mean, yes, doing benchmarks is one thing because benchmarks are built for stuff like that. Like when you take Cinebench, for instance, Cinebench uses every core at once, okay? And it's able to test that. And you're very impressed when you see that thing go zzz, and it's done, you know? You're like, wow, that thing just went by quick. But in real life, when you do something like using Final Cut Pro or something like that, that's one single core and then it's slow, you're sitting there like, why is this taking so long? Cinebench said I could do it this fast, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it has to do whether you can actually divide up the jobs that need to be done, send them out as separate little packages to separate cores, and then bring all that information back together to then do something useful with it. And that's why it works so well for things like, rendering and stuff like that, because you can break down all of the tasks into little jobs that you then send to each of the cores. But when you're looking at other tasks, you may not, the job that you have to do, you may not be able to slice up into little pieces.
So, our Brock here says, how is ARM going to outrun AMD for metal?
And I replied, who says metal is going to stick around?
Yeah.
They don't have to use metal anymore. Once it's all their CPUs, their GPUs, they can say, bye-bye metal.
Yeah.
On to the next. So
Yeah, I mean, one thing is very, very clear from this move is that Apple wants control of stuff, whether it be because of supply issues or whether it be because of just cost, just making it so that they can just increase their profit margins, whatever it is, they are clearly trying to reduce their dependence on other companies.
Oh, exactly. And they're trying to keep the cost down too because, again, them making their own silicon. In fact, I don't that article you shared about Bob Cringely talking about buying that chip maker or that in Taiwan. That makes a lot of sense, and Apple has done that before. They will go and buy something like that and start using it. I mean, they bought Siri. Siri was an outside project. They brought that in. A lot
still doesn't work.
No, it still doesn't work, but it's still. But anyways, you see what I'm saying? Though Apple is known to do that.
Okay, I have some new information. I was doing a little research out of curiosity to kind of confirm. Nope. Microsoft actually is doubling down again on ARM. They never let it go. They actually been producing ARM machines for the consumer market, and now they're going to push it heavily. They have a new Surface Pro X that runs a 3 gigahertz ARM on PC with 2 teraflops of best-in-class graphics processing power.
I wonder
So
why.
Microsoft is redoubling on their efforts now.
I wonder why.
But they never gave up on it.
But I understand that.
From
But
everything I was reading, they're consumers. So I was wrong. I stated incorrectly. It has been in the consumer market, but now they're pushing it again, thanks to Apple.
I was going to say, that's why I asked you that question. I wonder why. When Apple does something like that, it spurs Microsoft to. They're like, oh crap, we gotta keep up. Especially when you see benchmarks like that, what they just did against their Intel versions, and using Rosetta on top of that. I mean, come on.
My question is, how long will Intel be able to stay around with their x86 and the AMD x64 platform, and how long will AMD be able to do that?
Let's put it this way: if Microsoft moves away from it, Intel is dead.
Yeah, the game's over.
The game is over, and I would probably bet and say that AMD, as far as the CPU, is also dead, because they're both based on the x86 architecture. So unless AMD kind of moves towards the ARM architecture, I don't see it happening.
Yeah, but doesn't that go for GPUs as well? I mean, if ARM graphics are close to matching the graphics chips we have today, not the super high-end stuff, but then how is AMD and what's the other one, NVIDIA, how are they going to keep producing these chips that devour like 500 watts? They get hot as hell. How are they going to compete?
Well, part of that is, okay, so actually NVIDIA has been producing ARM chips for a long time. And they, if you look at what it is, it's a slightly different core, but it's mainly about the instruction set it's processing. So it's really the cores that a graphics card is using is just configured slightly different by what it's supporting, just like the difference between, in x86 and an x64, it's more what it's using to process. But NVIDIA's actually produced ARM chips that just take their stuff and, right there, just slap it to a RISC architecture support, and bam, you've got a very capable, very powerful ARM chip with graphics built in.
And I think that's the selling point. Is it's going to, like we just said, it's going to put not only Intel and AMD out of business, but it might put AMD completely out because they do the graphics and GPU or CPU rather right now, whereas Intel, they actually do some GPU stuff, but it's built into their CPUs a lot, especially for the mobile units. But then you got NVIDIA, which will probably just be out completely because that's all they do is graphics, if I'm not mistaken. Do they do CPUs too?
Yep, they do ARM CPUs.
Okay.
And they do high processing. NVIDIA is not going to go out on the CPU market because they're still going to have those GPUs like the Teslas that are strictly computation monstrosities. The cores are designed to handle high computation that you really won't be doing on an ARM chip at that level or that degree. So you're still gonna have a market for that higher end focus based processing, but we're definitely going to see a lot more APU that's going to definitely have a lot more power to it.
Sounds good.
Yep. So we're not afraid to make predictions of the future.
Yeah.
No, we're not making any predictions anymore.
I'm looking forward to multi-core support though.
Yes.
That's going to be, the year is 2001. I get my first G4 dual processor. Like, damn, not a lot of apps support dual core. It's 2020, and I'm still saying, well, not a lot of apps properly support it. It's time.
Yeah, I use InDesign all the time, and when I go to generate a PDF of this multi-page document that I've been working on, and I sit there and I watch my cores, it's just like, and it takes
That's why I got my wife an iMac.
several minutes to finish the thing. I'm like, why aren't those cores pegged when you're doing that?
Yeah. Because
It'd
for
be done in
that
seconds.
stuff, it's important to have the single core performance. That's why I got my wife an iMac. I'd love to hook her up with a Mac Pro, 12 core, nice graphics card, 2 graphics cards, whatever. But the iSeries is just better for Adobe because of that single core nonsense.
Now,
Yep.
Photoshop does use multi-core.
For
Support.
certain tasks, yeah. I
For
mean,
certain-
Yeah, depending on what filter you use and all that, there's still a lot
Yeah.
of stuff in there that's single core.
InDesign,
One-
Illustrator, they don't use it.
one thing that I would say though is that the OS itself is very good at handling multi-core stuff. So if you're actually running lots of applications at the same time, doing things at the same time, you can take advantage of that multi-core functionality, which I do a lot. So
And what about you, Dan? Is there an ARM Mac in your future?
Definitely not. I'm
What?
I'm not sold yet. We're gonna have to see.
I don't
Fair
even
enough.
see. I don't even see a new Mac Pro back there in his little class. I see a Mac Pro, but that's all I see back behind him. So
Yeah, I got the 5.1, and I have a G4 here, a Intel 24-inch 06, and then a couple classics sitting back behind there with the
There we go.
Cube and the iMac.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
all right. So I think that's enough about the ARM. So
yeah, we
let's
flogged that one.
let's talk about Big Sur, or BS as we call it. OSBS. We've had about a week and a half now to actually use it. I know some of us have actually installed it on their computer. I actually haven't installed on my MacBook Pro on an external drive because I don't put beta software on my main drive. That's just something I never do.
You don't put BS
Smart.
on your main drive?
No. Nope.
Not likely.
So I'm running it on an SSD, running through a USB 3.1 adapter to my computer. So it runs pretty fast. It's not as fast as it would be on the SSD, built-in SSD, but it's fast
Right.
enough for me to test it and stuff. So one of the first things I kind of like about it is the new messages. And I was talking to these guys about it pre-show. Is you're able to pin messages to the top, so they're always there now. So you don't have to go down and search through a message. Oh wait, when did I send this? Especially if you have about 30 or 40 of them, like I normally do, because I have a hard.
What are you saying?
I don't delete a lot of my messages, so I have a lot in there. Especially when you get stuff like I get codes from like Amazon saying, "Oh, your package is here," or you get the like Twitch actually every once in a while sends me a code to verify that second or what do they call it, two-form identification or two-factor identification. So a lot of things use that, so it sends a text message, which actually, so I get a lot of text messages. But the way the old iMessage does is it puts the newest up top, okay, and then it moves everything down the bottom. It keeps moving down until you get a new message in that, and then it moves it back up. Now you're able to pin, at least I think, if I remember correctly, 9 conversations to the top, so that it stays up there at the top. And I sent these guys a screenshot of what it looks like pinned on the chat. I don't have one available to share with everybody here, but it's pretty neat. I kind of like that feature. That's one of the newest features. Now, the flip side of that is that the OS is looking too iOS-ish. It is very, very, I want to say comic book looking, or
Yeah.
it's way colorful. Let's put it that way.
I haven't played
Well,
with it
the-
myself, but from what I see, I like the functionality and the features. Natural evolution of the OS. I just hate the look, but I've been saying that since Lion. I would prefer if everything still looked like Snow Leopard, but
I like that they added the control center, but it looks just like it does on the iPhone. I wonder if they're going to make that a little more desktop-esque.
Yeah,
or if they're just going to leave it like that.
now, yeah, and I just pulled up the control center on my MacBook Pro here, and yeah, you're right. And when you click on something, it's almost like the iPhone. You're not like getting a full indication if it's completely off or if it's just kind of.
Mhm.
You remember how we
Yeah.
had that issue with especially Wi-Fi?
Mhm.
If
Wi-Fi
you
and
are
Bluetooth, yeah.
Bluetooth, if you wanted to turn it completely off, it didn't really turn it completely off. It kind of suspended it, I think, or
Yeah.
if that's the word. Uh,
Yeah.
it
I
was
think it just disconnected.
it disconnected, but it would still be the radio would still be
Yeah.
on.
Right.
And a lot of people were angry about that because it's like if I go in Control Center and I turn it off, I want it completely, the radio completely to be off. I don't want it to be
Right.
on.
Right.
Well, the phone is the same way. If you turn it off through the control center, it disables it until the next day, and then it turns it back on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've seen that
You
happen.
have to go into the system preferences and turn it off there, and then it stays off. It took me a while to learn that.
I mean, it is a beta, of course. A lot may change, but on the flip side, a lot may not change. This might be what it's going to be, and they're just going to work out the bugs.
Yeah,
Well-
I mean, I definitely think if the looking iOS is going to stay. I mean, I definitely think that's where they're going. I'm not saying that they're necessarily all going to like merge into one OS or anything like that, but I definitely think that the sort of the Mac OS is just going to get more and more of that iOS look and feel about it.
Boo.
Now I know Crazy Ken went on about this too. He put something about the battery preferences, and looking at the battery icon is just horrendous. I don't know if anybody's seen that. Go watch.
No.
Yeah,
The
go
thing
watch.
is, from all the screenshots and videos I've seen, same as with the phone, it feels like you're working with a toy. It doesn't have this serious.
Mm.
I don't know how to put it into words, but you spend 50 grand on a Mac Pro. You don't want to look like a damn toy.
Exactly.
That's just me, but
I'd agree with that.
Now,
Just launch the terminal.
well, another thing I noticed about it. Remember back, I think it was iOS 7 is when they went to the flat interface. Correct? Correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't remember.
I think
I
it's
think you're right on that.
yeah. I think
Yeah,
they went
yeah.
to because they fired Scott Forstall, and then they put Johnny Ives in charge of the
Yeah.
the iOS, which was the dumbest thing ever because
It was
he
a
has
winning
no,
decision.
Yeah, he has no clue
Yeah.
about an operating system because he's an industrial designer. He doesn't know anything about operating systems. Anyways, they went with the flat. Remember the skeuomorphic designs they had on the iPhone where icons looked like what they were.
They
you know?
overdid it a little, but I liked it.
I liked it. I liked
Yeah.
it too. Now they went back to the flat icons, and so Mac OS actually went the same direction. If you notice that, like for instance, I think
Yosemite.
Yosemite and on
Yep.
had flat icons. Now Big Sur is bringing back the non-flat icons again. Okay, they actually have.
But just a little.
They're
only just a little.
Yeah, just a little bit. They have 3D effects on them now, so they look more 3D. So they have drop shadows behind the things, but it's kind of funny how they're going through this circle. It comes
Design
to
is always very sort of cyclic. I mean, I remember I did a design of something like a web design or something, and I created the buttons with the fake sort of 3D in them to look like the early iOS. And I remember a designer looking at it going, "Oh, that looks so old. The buttons don't look like that anymore. They need to be flat." So yeah, I mean,
Bring back
that's
Aqua.
designers.
Yeah.
Dude, I would love Aqua back.
But what's funny about that is that Apple forced a lot of the developers to actually make their icons to match Apple's scheme. In other words, flat icons, because you notice that a lot of the remember the old YouTube app? It looked like a little TV, a little
Yeah.
old style
Yeah.
TV. Well, that went away and it went just to the YouTube symbol. It was a flat 2-color symbol. That was all it is now. So the question is
Play
are they
button.
going to let the developers start making these 3D icons again?
It'd be nice.
I know.
Because I mean, I'm looking at my dock on Big BS here, and it looks more 3D-ish. It's not flat anymore.
Mine's kind of a mix. Like
True.
I'm using what version of Office do I have? I
Well-
don't know. It's an older one.
Well,
But those
2008.
icons are still 3D. But then all of the Adobe icons are just flat as can be.
Yeah.
and did you notice that they got rid of the rocket ship for the launch? launch pad.
Yeah, well, good.
If you look at it,
I don't even
now,
like Launchpad anyway.
if you look at the Launchpad icon, now it looks like a folder with a bunch of icons in it. It looks like it's an iOS folder with icons in it.
And I still don't use it.
I actually do use it. I have actually used Launchpad
Yeah, but
a
you
lot.
use Stacks.
never have.
I mean,
I use Stacks too. Yes.
Launcher has always looked to me like something that belonged on a mobile device and just kind of got left in Mac OS, and they were like, "Hey, maybe people will use it," and it just doesn't look right on a desktop, if you ask me.
I liked it in OS 8 and 9, especially the little drag out thing from the menu bar where you had all your apps and different buttons. But what's it called on the Mac now? I don't even have it in my dock. I never use it.
Mission Control.
Launchpad.
Launchpad.
It's Launchpad. Yeah.
It's faster just to drag an app to my dock or to hit Command Space.
I
type
normally
it in,
have my apps to my dock, but there's some apps that I don't open a lot of, so they're in the Launchpad. So I just go to grab it real quick if I need to do that. But most of my apps are in the Launchpad. Now we know that Bruce's every one of his apps is in there.
Is it the dock?
So once my icons get too small for me to be able to see them, that's when I do the Command Space thing and use Spotlight and type the name of the app. So yeah, I tend not to use Launchpad either, though I probably should, but yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
That's why Bruce needs one of those 47-inch curved displays so he can see his dock.
I need two rows on the dock is what I need. 2 rows on the dock would sort me out.
2 rows, or you could have
Until
rows
next week.
or you could have rows on either side and the bottom. Make it a U shape.
Yeah.
I've got 3 screens here, so if I could have Launchpad on across all 3 of them, I'd be fine.
Yep.
Yeah, Big Sur, is that going to have adaptive refresh, variable refresh rate built in for GPUs on the Mac OS side? It's been something with PC gaming, and more and more displays are incorporating that. You'd think the Mac would start to use those features.
I would see it happen on their Retina laptops, maybe the iMac, although that's a pretty damn big screen. But I don't see why not.
The 27-inch.
I mean, like 120 hertz or 144p would be kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it on mine as far as a setting I could change, but that's probably because the built-in display is set to whatever Apple wants.
Right, 60 hertz.
Yeah, it's whatever.
It seems like that's something they would save for 1 or 2 years from now. Like first come the ARM switch, and then software optimizations, new operating system. If they drop the ARM Max along with the adaptive resolution thing, and suddenly you have a battery life of a week, I think they're out of ideas for the next 5 years. So they're probably going to spread it out a little. I would imagine. I don't know.
In fact, I'm looking at the system information, and it doesn't even tell me what the refresh rate is in here.
It's so fast you can't even see it.
Exactly.
Limited to whatever your monitor is probably 60 hertz.
Yeah, it's whatever this Retina display is on this MacBooks is. So, I don't know. Now, for instance, I haven't tried it on my CP or my CMP yet. I'm running Catalina on here right now, and I can actually run 144. I can run different refresh rates on Catalina on this monitor that I have. I have up to 144 megahertz refresh rate. So I'm assuming that if you put a regular monitor, you probably can do that, probably with Big Sur too.
Yeah, that's good to know.
Yeah. So just to let you know,
I think apart from you and you, Dana, you're playing with it too. I think just Grudy has been playing with it.
Grudy he made a video, and that's all he probably did. He probably didn't even play with it after that.
Yeah,
Steve
but his timing was exceptional.
Sound video. Pretty cool video, by the way, if you haven't seen it, people. Steve did a video about comparison of system sounds over the years.
And they're a lot different because there's a lot of new sounds in Big Sur that I'm like, what the hell was that it just did? I'm sitting there like, I am still trying to to get used to the sounds in Big Sur because they're all.
I'm still
It-
on the
it
Harvey,
makes
but I'm
sense.
trying out the Big Sur sounds at the moment, and I'm not a huge fan. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
makes sense. I mean, you're gonna make your laptops this thick. You're not gonna put a subwoofer in there, so why have
No.
bass in your sounds?
Yeah.
Take it out.
But if on a desktop you have speakers plugged in that have bass,
Yeah.
so I mean, are they making two different separate sounds? I mean, making it bassy for desktops that have real speakers versus, like you
Maybe.
said, laptops
But
that have.
one good thing I have to say is that we have a startup chime again.
Yeah.
And it's
Happy with that.
configurable. You can actually turn it off and on yourself. That is something that's not Apple-like. They won't.
I know it's. I think it's stupid.
You could do
'cause-
that before by
Yeah,
muting
just
the
mute
system.
your system and it's done. Apple had to be stupid and put a checkbox in. Like,
Yeah.
come
Yeah.
on. The diehards know that you mute your sound before the restart. You don't wake the whole house up.
Yeah.
I'm just so confused by it as a change in the first place. I mean, Apple has had
Yeah.
a chime
Why?
since 1984. Why?
Yeah.
Why
Why take it away
did they
and not say anything
suddenly
about it?
decide that it was something that had to be removed?
I
mean,
think
was
to
there a
be-
petition or something?
No,
I think Tim Cook had something to
no,
say.
I don't
about
think
that.
Tim Cook. I think this is a Johnny Ives thing.
Or yes, that's the dude I meant.
Yeah, I think it was a Johnny Ives thing, and now that he's gone, they got the backlash that they weren't expecting about, hey, where's my boot up chime?
Well, there has been, I cannot list any sources, but there has been a lot of people that have told me that there's significant amounts of complaining coming from the Genius Bar and the Genius Room because the startup chime is a very valuable diagnostic tool,
Well, sure.
especially if you have to get people in and out of from the Genius Bar in 2.5 minutes flat because, you've got 50 people around the block lined up waiting for their appointment. That startup chime is very important. So the Apple has had a lot of internal pushback, like, dude, where's my chime? Come on, you're killing us here.
Now, one of the things I just now noticed on here, the battery on the top. Now, Dana, correct me if I'm wrong here. I don't see a option that I can see the percentage anymore. on
You're asking
BS.
me?
Yes. 'cause
Oh,
you-
I haven't been playing with it at all. It was
I
Steve
thought you
was.
were. Oh, Steve was.
No.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see an option to see the actual battery percentage anymore. I think they took
Yeah, but
that off.
iOS lost that too, didn't it? A while ago?
Yes, it did
No.
when they came out with the the notch iPhones
Yeah,
do
the
not
notch
have a
ones,
battery
yeah.
percentage.
What?
anymore.
You can still turn it back on. I turned it back on my
nope,
phone.
Nope. You cannot turn it on if you have a phone with a notch.
What? That's
Yes.
Yep,
stupid.
that's what I heard as well. Yeah.
All the more reason to not get a notch.
Hold it back, Jay.
Yeah,
All I
can't
saw
see
was a
it.
big white blur.
It was too close.
Yeah, but if I hold it here, all you see is my kid when he was 2 weeks old, not the battery indicator. So
Matt and Jake are saying there's an option in the menu bar and control center settings.
What, on the menu bar? No, I did click on the menu bar and I can't find it. So
try
Control center?
Option click or Command click. They like to hide stuff in there.
Yeah.
no, only thing I
That's
see is
cool.
if I option click, it brings a little menu up that says batteries at 90%, but it doesn't show the percentage right next to the battery icon like it does on my older operating systems.
They're saying
Jake
go
says
into
go in
system
control center.
preferences.
I am in
Oh,
system preferences.
system-
I'm in the battery, and there is
Matt
nothing.
is saying system preferences. Jake is saying control center. Unless he means control center in system preferences. I don't know what it looks like.
Yeah. I don't see anywhere where it is. I have to do some more research on this because I see usage history, then I see battery, then power adapter, and then schedule. I mean, there's nothing.
And it's still beta 1, so I mean, it's something that they could eventually just put back in there once they get the testing done.
There's a menu bar and control center setting.
I'll have to,
Well,
I'll
I
have to
think
do
that's
some more
something
planning.
to figure out after the show.
Yeah, I'll figure
Yeah.
that out. I'm not
Yeah.
going to sit there and try it right now. But anybody got
Actually,
any-
I nominate Dan. Dan is going to install the beta, and he's going to let us all know how it works.
All right. So anything else on BS before we move on?
No? it'll be interesting to see how it evolves. I know it's a first beta. A lot can happen, a lot can change, but
One thing that I watched Snazzy Labs' new video, and he was touching on, Apple in the past has said, no, we're not going to do touchscreen Macs, just because of an ergonomics point of view. Your arm gets tired doing this, pointing at the screen all the time.
Yeah.
But he said he can't help but notice that, you look at your menu bar in Catalina, and then you look at your menu bar in Big Sur. Everything's just a little bit farther apart, like about the width of a fingertip. And when you look at Control Center, the sliders are massive, like they are on a phone. This is the size of your fingertip. So, I'm all about them having a consistent type of design,
But it's
language
looking
across
like
all of their operating systems. But why do you make these things further apart in Mac OS?
Well, I'm
now?
looking at it right now, and you mentioned that, and yes, all of the little icons on the menu bar are a little further apart than they are on my Mac Pro up here. Because I'm looking at my Mac Pro, everything's squeezed together. I mean, it's like right next to each other.
So
Everything
does that
is-
mean that there's a touchscreen solution coming?
I don't think so.
I wouldn't be.
That'd
I
be
wouldn't be
nice.
surprised either way, to be honest.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
I think it means
they
that
could.
instead of rewriting Catalina completely to make Big Sur, I think they just ported iPad OS to the Mac with some enhancements.
Kind of along that line, I think they're going to make it so that the iPad or the iPad Pro becomes your touchscreen interface for your desktop if you want it to.
That'd
Like
be
an
nice.
external touch
So that
bar.
you plug it into your Mac running Big Sur or whatever comes after it, and suddenly your desktop is mirrored on your iPad, and then you can do the touchscreen
Well-
things there however you want.
Well, remember in
That would make sense
Catalina-
for why everything's spaced further apart.
But you remember Catalina actually came out with Sidecar, okay?
Right.
And that allows you to use your iPad as a secondary screen with touch interface.
There you go.
I think that was the first step, was the Sidecar. And I think the next step is they're going to make the whole system touchscreen capable.
Yep.
So therefore, later on down the road, they may not come out with touchscreens the next go round, but the next version, guess what? Boom, they're going to have touchscreen. Even though Apple
Yep.
said they are never, ever, ever, ever going to do it. And guess what? They're doing it.
Yeah.
So I'm not a Catalina user, but did Apple actually call something Sidecar?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like the PC Junior, IBM PC Junior
No.
Sidecar.
No. Yeah. What Sidecar is basically you can use your iPad, a
As a
newer iPad,
Supplemental display.
as a secondary display for your Mac over Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. You don't have to actually have it physically connected to it.
Which is
However,
nifty.
in my testing on it, it was garbage.
Well, they stole it from Duet. Remember Duet?
Yep.
Yeah.
Duet
And-
worked better than Sidecar.
Yes.
Yeah.
Apple's like,
But-
we could do better. No, you can't. So no.
Duet's got to be plugged in though. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
I think Duet. Yeah. Cool.
Because they found out pretty early on that Wi-Fi is just not stable enough to
Mm.
do
well,
that.
and here's another issue is that even if you plug in an iPad with Lightning connector, you're only on USB 2.0 speeds. So you're still, I mean, to put display information over onto your iPad is still very slow.
Yeah.
They need to, they probably are waiting to, like the newer iPads have Thunderbolt capability. So guess what? Now you can actually use those as a real display, especially the 12.9 inch ones,
Yeah.
All right.
We'll see.
All right. So we got our guest on tonight, and he has something he wants to talk to us about. So we're going to go ahead and throw the floor over to him now.
You'll have to unmute first.
Was he muted?
Yeah, he's muted.
Yeah, sorry about that. So everybody, the ambassador again, so Low End Mac, and I came on today to talk about a cool piece of tech. I put the 5.1. It's this right here, the Gigabyte GC Titan Ridge. So they have two different types of cards. They have the Titan Ridge and the Alpine Ridge.
Can you tell our viewers what a Titan Ridge is, what it does first?
Well, what a Titan Ridge is, this is a PCI Express add-on card that'll work with the CMP, anything the 3.1 on up. So
3.1 as well. Wow.
Yeah, it does work on the 3.1. So Mark Sokolowski of Low End Mac, he's been playing with it tonight. He just got it today.
I just saw his post. Yeah.
He's playing with it tonight on the 3.1 and trying to really get it. Some people are suggesting he might want to try OpenCore, but he's still seeing the USB bus part of it's working great. I told him generally just requires you to zap the PRAM and make sure the devices are attached and powered on and reboot. The trick is any device in the chain, it has to be Thunderbolt 3 for it to work correctly. It'll work like a USB-C card, but if you want true Thunderbolt speeds, like out of a dock or something like that, these marketers they're real tricky. They'll tell you it's Thunderbolt capable, it's a Thunderbolt compatible device, but it's got to have the Thunderbolt symbol on it, and it's got to be an official certified Thunderbolt device. Or if they just tell you it's Thunderbolt compatible, it's probably just USB-C, and you're going to get 10 gigabit per second and not 40. So the Titan Ridge has two 40 gig ports on it. Has two full bandwidth Thunderbolt 3 ports on it, and you put it in the CMP. You'll want to put it in your 8X top slot, and have your bottom slot at 16X for your GPU. And this does more than just Thunderbolt 3 I/O. You're going to get some more advanced graphics capabilities out of this card too, with the Thunderbolt display. Now CMPs don't natively connect to Thunderbolt displays because there's no Thunderbolt I/O, and that's what this enables. This enables Thunderbolt I/O to even a Thunderbolt display. So there's some quirks. It will work with the Thunderbolt official Mac Apple Thunderbolt display, but I believe some controls, some things might not fully work, some of the ports, but it'll give you the display. It'll give you the ability to adjust the resolution from the graphics card. It'll give you the full display. It does work. There's a guy who flashes these cards. There's a couple people who do it, but I'm going to go and say a special thanks to eBay seller Super Chief 9, and just to give a little plug, but this guy's really good at flashing these cards. I'll put the link in the chat later.
So these are flashed now for the Mac, so you don't have to, like before you had to install it and then boot into Windows, then you could boot back to the Mac. These are flashed now, so you don't have to do that?
Yeah, he'll have them pre-flashed.
Awesome.
Or you can send him your own card if you acquire your own card and maybe get a good deal and get a coupon and get one for cheap. He sells the flash ones for about $165 pre-flashed. You can get them off the shelf for about $100 typically, and he charges $55 to flash them plus your cost to ship it to him. So it's about the same to buy one off the shelf unless you get a good deal, like I said. And the difference between the Titan Ridge and the Alpine Ridge is the Titan Ridge has DisplayPort 1.4. So if you end up getting an 8K display or you want to run dual 4K displays at some point, it really gives you the bandwidth you need for video. So it'll even do a 4K 120 hertz through the Titan Ridge.
So I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I haven't kept up with this Titan Ridge stuff in a long time. When it first became news, it was like, oh, cool, it's possible. But then you needed Windows for the initial handshake, and there were some downsides.
Yeah, and that's something
that
Jay
was a
just
year
not going
ago,
to do.
maybe longer. So what are the benefits now? Does it do data and video? Because I believe at first people said you can hook up a Thunderbolt display, but you don't have speakers, you don't have the ports, you just have video, and that's it. Has that changed?
So I haven't fully tested with the Thunderbolt display. I don't have one, but I'd encourage just to look in the community. There's a Facebook group on the GC Titan Ridge for the Mac Pro 5.1. So again, I can put the link to that in chat later. But there's a whole community that they're working on continued development with this and adding capabilities every day. That Super Chief, he wasn't selling the Alpine Ridge until a week ago. Now he's doing the Alpine Ridge too, which is cheaper. You can get the Alpine Ridge. So, you know, you're not going to be doing dual 4K, or you don't need DisplayPort 1.4. That's $40 cheaper. And my point is, this just keeps evolving. It keeps getting better. So one of the toy I got recently with the Titan Ridge is this. I got a Wavelink Thunderbolt dock. I found this for kind of cheap. It was the previous generation, the ThunderDock 2. They have the ThunderDock 3 out. I got that one for about $86 shipped, and they were trending 150, 160 on eBay. So I got a real good deal. Found it like on a local seller, and there's it really does give you that full bandwidth that you don't get on in a big wide variety of ports. It's got the dual display port, 1.4 4K, so it'll do. You can end up having all kinds of displays hooked up if you have a Titan Ridge plus your normal GPU hookups, and then again the I/O, the pass through. One of the biggest gains, I would say, though, that you get with the Titan Ridge on the Mac Pro is something you just can't get unless you have one. It's eGPU. So, I mean, yeah, you could do eGPU with a variety of other input-output options with a CMP, but getting a Thunderbolt 3 eGPU chassis, you can get a 16-lane. You could literally have two 16-lane cards running by having an eGPU off Thunderbolt 3 then. So
not bad.
Then you're getting that full 40 gig link to an eGPU chassis. And say you have one metal capable card for that, like that's really optimized for the Mac OS. And then, you want to boot the Windows Boot Camp and you have a real good gaming card, like say a GTX or an RTX 2080 Ti, and you want to run that for gaming and get all the ray tracing and all that. Well, you can have the eGPU chassis doing that for you for Windows, or vice versa, and have have that installed in your CMP, and then have an external high-powered metal capable card.
That's cool. So it's a lot better now than a year ago when I read about it. It's coming a long way then.
Well, it sure has. I mean, it's really adding some capabilities. So I'm just going to show share my screen if I could. I don't know if I'm able to. If you have, yeah, here we are. So you can see my screen now. I'm going to go and I'm actually on my 5.1 desktop.
I don't see it.
No, we're not seeing the screen. I don't think that works on the NDI source, so it's probably not going to happen.
No, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
Well,
so what are the system requirements to run that car?
Oh, wait.
There we go.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
there it is. Okay,
got you.
so
Well,
There
we
you
can
go.
see it. We can see it, but the viewers are not seeing it.
Oh,
okay, so it's not being broadcast, but
No.
anyway, to you guys, you can see the card installed. See my system. My early 2009 was a 4.1 flash to 5.1 with the dual 5680 3.33 gigahertz, and
yeah.
this you could do a disk speed test. So I have a stress test to 1 gig right
That's
now.
a lot of porn, by the way, man. Come on. Wow.
Yeah, I keep dreaming, but
You guys see the screen, man. I mean, it's a good thing we're not broadcasting.
Oh yeah, this is. Whew.
guys are funny. But we're gonna go and just run a stress test off the. This is an attached USB 3 drive. That's a real cheap USB 3 drive, and it's gonna.
That's kind of slow.
It's writing.
That's slower than the first flash drive I ever bought.
Wow,
well,
right? The read
pretty
speed though is pretty good.
What's it?
I mean, this is megabytes, not megabits. So
Right.
multiplied by 8. So you're getting getting pretty fast reads. You're getting close to a gigabit read off that. So that's off the USB.
Okay, Brock wants to know: is there any bottlenecks on the CMP for this card?
I haven't seen any so far that I'm aware of. I would go and do the same stress test now you were seeing before on that test drive 1. But anyway, I'll go back to that in a minute. Stop sharing. But anyway, that card, it's quite capable. With what it does. Again, fast connections off that. I was getting, before really getting into it, I know the viewers weren't able to see my screen share, but it really 5 to 10 times faster transfers I was seeing on average between devices connected to my dock. You can get fast charging as well. If you have a MacBook Pro, you have a powered dock that's supplying 60, 85, 87 watts of power. You can end up just connecting your dock that has a pass-through Thunderbolt port, or just plug it in.
Now, before we wrap up, are you going to be writing about this on Low End Mac?
Yes, I sure will be. I'm going to put a full article together. But again, it's I just got this about a week ago, and so it's there's it's kind of in its early phases for me from a test perspective, and I know Mark's going to have some more, so we're going to kind of collaborate on it and put a good article out that will
cool. This is the thing, man. We're talking about Macs from 12. 11, they're just continuing to keep up. It's awesome.
3,1's what? Yeah, that's
2008.
Yeah,
3.1.
12 years.
Mine's an 09 4.1 flash to a 5.1.
That's what mine. That's what I'm running right here is a 4.1 flash to 5.1. I mean,
me too.
With a big gouge in it, right?
Gouge is gone.
Gouge is gone.
Thanks to Jay.
Well, there's definitely more
pretty board now.
Actually, Jay has that board. He sold me a different one and repaired that one later.
I see.
Saved you some money.
And it's done, and it works.
Yeah.
So.
All right, guys. So
that's that.
I appreciate that in depth on it, but we'll be looking forward to seeing that article on Low End Mac there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And if you guys are not a member of Low End Mac, it's a group on Facebook. Really good group, especially for low end Mac computers, and it goes from like the old classics, pretty much all the way up to around 2008, 2009, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the new Mac
it's always changing.
Mac as well, so they're allowed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So go check it out.
Did I see an article this week where they just vintaged the first Retina display MacBook?
Yes,
obsolete.
they did. No, is it
It's
obsolete?
obsolete?
Yeah.
Is it really?
There's been a few that have been vintage already, but this is the first obsolete Retina.
Wow. And that's what, 2012?
Yep. Mid-2012.
Wow. 8 years, and it's already obsolete.
So never forget that Apple is a hardware company.
Is that a MacBook or a MacBook Pro?
Yeah, they won't let us forget that, Bruce.
No, they won't. This is one of the things when I always see people make comparisons about operating systems. Oh, Windows does this, Windows does that. And it's like, Microsoft is a software company. Okay, I know they do make some hardware, but ultimately, Microsoft make money from selling software. Apple give their software away or their OSs away for free. So, they don't
make their money on the OS. They make their money on the hardware.
The hardware. That's exactly right. So they will be doing anything they can to make you buy new hardware.
Yep.
People like us really piss Apple off.
Yeah.
With our ancient computers
like
that we keep updating.
DOS Dude and OpenCore, and everything else out there. Yeah, they're probably, yeah. All right, so next one. Intel is not quite out of the game yet. There's been some rumors that a new Intel i9 iMacs are on the way, which is kind of intriguing because why would you buy an Intel now knowing that ARM is coming on the way?
Nope.
Yes, that is the question.
It makes,
what is this going
for
to do
businesses,
to Apple sale?
It makes sense.
Yeah, it's like, why are you doing this? I mean,
No, but if I made my money with my Mac, right now I don't. I don't need my Mac to make money. It's just a toy basically that I do a lot of stuff with. But for someone like Dana or my wife or whoever does graphics or music, yes, absolutely. Get the new i9, get the new i25, whatever's coming
Well-
out next until the ARM comes out, because you'll make that money back depending on your business in a few months to a year anyway. It pays for itself.
true.
Yeah.
But even though Apple has said they're going to support the Intel for years to come, now what is years to come? Apple speak. Is
Yeah,
that
but for most
2
people,
years?
especially businesses, that Mac, by the time they say goodbye to Intel when it comes to OS support, these people that are buying the new iMacs have moved on to new hardware probably 2 or 3 times already in between now and then. Because for those people, it's a tax write-off, and it's a way to make money faster. So they will keep upgrading regardless of what's out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I definitely think it's definitely going to narrow the market. So, I mean, yes, there's definitely an argument to be made for the people that are going to buy a Mac. They're going to buy a Mac now, regardless of what Apple has in the future, because they want to upgrade, they want the faster computer. But I just feel like this is severely impact on the sales of Intel computers from now on. With a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the non-business users, people like me, for example, not that I'm in the market for a new laptop, but right now I'm like, no, I could get a few more years out of my 2012 or 2015. I'm not in a hurry. Businesses are like, screw it, buy 20. We're gonna make it back by January anyway, and it's a write-off. Go get some. But for me, I'm like, nah, put some new thermal paste on my 2012 and I'm good to go. So.
Well, to be honest with you, if I had the money to buy a new Mac Pro, I would probably get a new Mac Pro with an Intel processor right now.
Yeah.
Because to be honest with you, no telling what the ARM. Well, to be honest with you, I don't think the ARM is coming to the Mac Pro anytime soon.
It'll be last like it was with Intel, I think.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah. Whatever is happening, Apple is still working on it because they clearly don't have anything suitable.
No, they don't.
Right now.
Single core.
I mean, the demo they did was kind of shaky too, because I mean, you could see it was, it was lagging that game that they were trying to play.
Yeah,
I was like,
but geez, wasn't Microsoft Word responsive?
Yeah. Who cares about that?
It was great.
I still maintain that was a video because Word has never been responsive since version 5.
The only thing that properly worked in Word was that little paperclip animation. The rest was frozen. That stupid paperclip just kept talking to me. Nah. But I don't know. I think it makes, as an investment, I think it makes sense for a lot of people out there, particularly businesses or people that work from home. For the people that are like, I need 8 cores to check my Facebook. It doesn't make sense. Just
no,
wait.
you don't.
You
You need one single core to do. Single core on an iPad or something like that is perfect because you're only
Yeah, but
running
come
usually.
on. How many people are out there sitting at Starbucks drinking their triple frappe lattes, with, sitting there with their little Apple logo just because they can, to check Facebook and Instagram? Come on, how many
That is
people
true.
buy
I
this
agree with
stuff
you.
to do absolutely nothing with it?
Dude, I have
Those
seen
are
that.
the people that are gonna shy away from new purchases right now.
Yeah. The ones that are going to want to go to is the power users.
Yeah,
And that's the ones like us and the
which
ones
is
in the
traditionally always what Apple has been catering to. The power users, the professionals. So.
Yep. All right, so we're going to move on to the next one here. And Bruce, you have something to talk about here.
Yes, this is a very self-indulgent topic. I'll try and keep it
Go for it.
fairly quickly.
No, you got time. You got time.
I had a rare opportunity to use an Apple Lisa recently. One of my customers, Madeline McAndrews, she had purchased a Lisa, imported it from overseas. She'd had a lot of problems with it ongoing related to power supplies and stuff like that. So she dropped it off to me to try and sort that out, which I did. And once it was all fixed up, and changed it over from a 120 volt to a 240 volt version, so we can just plug it straight into the wall here. And I had a chance to use the Lisa operating system for the first time. And I've someone who has been using Macs for sort of a very long time, since the mid 80s. But this is the first time I've ever actually got to use the Lisa operating system, and it was quite an interesting experience for me, because I actually sat down in front of it and got completely sort of flummoxed by some things. It's like, how on earth am I going to? On earth do I do this? Because they hadn't really quite got it right. I mean, as the story goes, everyone, I'm sure they're familiar with the idea that the Xerox Palo Alto Research Center, or PARC, came up with the computer called the Alto, which was the very first graphical user interface. Yep. This is a place that came up with all sorts of innovations, such as
that's where Steve Jobs stole it.
Yes, well, and it's interesting because this is the word that always gets used. Steve Jobs stole it, and of course that conjures up ideas of him in his little black skivvy sneaking in at night with a torch and a camera and walking away with this information. But of course, it's not quite what.
No,
happened.
it's not. I know it's not the truth. Yeah.
Xerox actually did a deal with Apple to get some options on shares before Apple went public. Right. And in return for that, they invited Steve to come and have a look at the Palo Alto Research Center and see what they had cooking. And of course, the people at PARC had been creating these incredible innovations, but none of them were going to market because the people, the head honchos at Xerox,
had no clue.
They had no clue. They
built copiers.
They didn't have sales or marketing channels for any of this stuff. So when someone sort of said, "Hey, by the way, we've come up with the future of computing here," they're like, "Well, how does that help me sell a photocopier?" So, basically, they did all these amazing things, and virtually none of them went to market. I think the laser printer is probably, because they did invent the laser printer at PARC, and I think that's probably the only invention that Xerox moved forward with. But they invented object-oriented programming. They invented Ethernet. They invented the graphic user interface, WYSIWYG text editing, and they a resolution-independent page description language, which then became PostScript, and of course has then evolved into PDF. So, some pretty amazing things came out of this place. But when Steve Jobs came in, he saw the graphical user interface and went, "This is the future of computing," and went away and started building. They started building the Lisa. He had an idea to bring a very cheap computer out, but in the end, the costs just kept piling on, and Lisa ended up selling as a $10,000 computer, and it wasn't really suitable for the Apple market. I mean, Apple was selling Apple IIs, so the people that were, the Apple customers weren't really in a position to buy a $10,000 computer. So
whoa, what happened there?
That was awesome.
Wait, we lost
We
Bruce.
lost your audio, but before we lost your audio, it freaked out, and it was pretty cool.
Oh, really? Am I back?
Yeah,
you're back.
back
You're back.
now.
Okay, all right. Sorry, I wasn't saying anything particular.
You're gonna have to go back and watch that on
It's
the
like,
stream.
it's like
'cause-
Max Headroom there for a
yeah,
minute.
you're like,
Oh wow! Yeah. So anyhow, I used this Lisa sort of on the sort of on the weekend for quite a bit, and I did film some of it. I'm going to probably do a video, but the main takeaway, the thing that I found really interesting about it was incredibly slow. Doing virtually anything on the thing is slow. Launching an application is really, really slow.
Yeah.
And when you consider that it was $10,000 and then a year later the Macintosh came out, and there's no doubt about the fact that the early Macintosh operating systems were way, way quicker. So that obviously was the kiss of death for it.
well, here's a question I got about the Lisa then too, because you just mentioned this about how slow it was. Was it because of the memory that it had, or because it
No.
was the disk drives? the Twiggy
and
drives.
I'll tell you what it is. Well, now this is a Lisa 2, so this one is actually the 3.5-inch floppy drive
It
version.
doesn't have the Twiggy then, huh?
Yeah. But the interesting thing is that it has a thing called, I think it's called MacWorks. You can essentially load, put a disk into it, and it will behave like a Mac. It will actually run like a Mac, and that is not slow. So what that basically says, it's the system, the operating system on this thing wasn't right. They just hadn't got it right yet. They hadn't spent enough time on it. They hadn't refined it enough. Obviously, they were heavily focused on, look, this is a whole new way of using a computer, and that's still a big deal, But in terms of if you just go to launch, even launching the clock takes about 5 seconds to come to the screen. And I mean, it's like, what's going on?
But back then, 5 seconds wasn't nothing. I mean, come on. Nowadays, you're thinking about, oh God, it's taking 2 seconds. It's.
I guess the comparison is if you were to open the clock on a Macintosh. That I guess the thing I'm comparing to. I've got a 512K Macintosh here that I can fire up on like System 5 or 3 or whatever, and it is way faster.
But here's the question though: is that somebody that was using a Lisa before the Mac came out, they didn't have a reference, so
no,
but those were the people that were twice as pissed when the Mac did come out.
For $2,500 versus 10. I mean, $10,000 in 1983 is equivalent to about 25,000 today. So, we're talking some pretty big dollars. And again, this is Apple, who up until that point was selling Apple IIe. So, it was a big change for them. The other really interesting thing about the Lisa, which is so different to a Macintosh, it is unbelievably modular. You undo these screws to take the back panel off, and then you can take the top panel off, and you can take the front panel off, and you can pull the whole chassis out with all of the guts of it, and then all of the cards all pop out. I mean, the memory card is huge. It's a great big massive thing that goes in there. But it's
like 4 boards in it, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So the one that I was working on has the board on the bottom, and then it's got 2 big boards and 2 little memory boards. So, and when I say little, it's all relative. And a really interesting thing about it as well, and this is what really caught me out when I very first saw it. It was a lot bigger than I was expecting. I'd seen photos of Lisas many times before, but I've never used one. And I had always pictured that screen as being the same size as a Mac Plus, the 9-inch monochrome screen, but it's not. It's actually a 12-inch monochrome screen. Mm-hmm. So the whole scale of the thing is larger. So it's an absolutely monstrous unit. So I mean, it was an interesting experience. I mean, if anyone does get a chance to get their hands on one, it is fun. It's quite nostalgic. It is very interesting. You don't launch an application and create a new document like you do on a Macintosh. You don't go to MacPaint or whatever and open it and then go to new document. That's not how it works. If you open the document, it just says, tear off a piece of stationery, tear off a piece of stationery. And so from the desktop, you have to click on a stationery file for that application, which then creates an untitled document on the desktop, and then you double click that to launch the application. And that's how it works across the board. And then the only other thing worth mentioning is it doesn't use square pixels either. So the resolution of the thing actually uses rectangular pixels. So if you do run it, if you run the Mac emulator on it, if you run it to behave like a Macintosh, the screen's all squished because the Mac used square pixels and the Lisa used rectangular pixels.
Now I have 2 questions for you. The first one is the same question I ask Steve every time he pulls a Mac and puts it on his desk. Does it run Unreal Tournament?
No.
Okay, I figured. The second question is...
You can put Unreal Tournament on it as far as setting the box on top of the case.
Okay. The second question is, did you take any video footage of this occasion?
I did take video footage. I will be releasing a video in the not too distant future, and it is basically a video of me trying to figure out how that stupid operating system works.
Quick follow-up question. Do you still have the Lisa, and what is your address?
I do not still have the Lisa,
Okay.
Unfortunately. It is now in the hands of the owner, who was very happy to have it back and working. she had the issue that she had the old power supply wasn't sort of outputting the right amount of power, and it kept on. She had floppy emulators, and it kept frying the floppy emulators. So it doesn't fly.
I know
fly
your
anymore.
client from the Facebook groups and stuff, and she should have her own YouTube channel. So next time you talk to her, let her know that she has a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, indeed, and a lot of it comes my way, so that's great.
Yes.
Yes. So yeah, that's it.
Alrighty.
I just got a question.
Trina's
Did I have-
asking if you had
as
to
well?
recap it.
I just reefer. It had a dead reefer cap in the power supply that I had to replace. But for the majority of it, those caps were still good. I mean, in the future maybe, but a lot of the internals of it had already been updated and fixed. So
Okay.
I was
So
only
this
working on
this
smaller
one
part
was
of it.
like before the cap plague that we used to have.
Long before it. Yeah, that's right. Yep. So,
Okay.
so I mean, look, the capacitors will die eventually, but yeah, these ones it was still running pretty well.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, that is
Impressive.
impressive.
The whole not to go on too much of a tangent, but the whole capacitor plague that we're dealing with now was because of basically a bad run, right?
It's
I thought it was
actually
espionage.
it's espionage. It's it was a person working at and I can't remember which company it was, but a person working at one of the capacitor manufacturers incorrectly copied down the formula for the electrolyte they were using. He then took off, started his own company, started producing capacitors and selling them to the world. People were buying them in good faith, expecting that they were buying good quality capacitors, but they had problems. And anyone who has ever worked on, say, a Macintosh Classic or Classic 2, you can see the difference. I mean, you open these things up, and the capacitors on the analog board are just leaking goo all over the place. But then you can take a Macintosh Plus that came out years before it, and the capacitors on there are completely fine.
Wow.
Karma.
Yep.
Find that guy.
Find him and well, actually, that guy's giving Bruce business. So
Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
so why are we looking at your chest there,
that's
Dan?
true. But that won't change even if we found the guy.
No. That's
All right. So the last thing we got tonight before we call it a night is what were they
sure did.
smoking? So tonight we got I don't know who put this one in here, but this.
I
did
did.
you? Go ahead and explain this one,
Yeah.
then, Dana, because
Okay, so
I
let me see
already
if I can copy
put the link in.
here. Oh, did you put it in? Okay, this is an old Quantum Fireball hard drive, standard 3.5-inch hard drive. I believe it's a SCSI. It sure looks like. Yeah, it has to be a SCSI.
Doesn't even include
Fireball's a
shipping.
SCSI.
And it's not tested.
And it's $30 to ship this hard drive from Morgan Hill, California. $3,500. And I don't even know, like, I didn't read the description too closely.
It's not-
Used, not tested.
Yeah.
We sell it as is, where is, without warranty.
This
So-
does reek of someone who accidentally bumped the zero key a couple of times.
a couple.
It
yeah,
kind of
like
does,
two-
but it's been
like-
there since mid-June, so you would think he would
I
have
think
noticed.
there's 4 too many zeros.
Unbelievable.
I don't even know what
Yeah.
to say to this.
I mean, they obviously think they're sitting on something incredibly rare and precious.
Yeah, like
Maybe it's
because
not the
that's-
hard drive, but what's on it.
I don't know. COVID.
No, it's untested. Nobody knows. It might not even work. But if you got more money than you know what to do with, and you're dumb as a stump, go ahead and buy that hard
Hey,
drive.
get
yeah, because we'd love to know. what's
get
on
gold.
It's all
I
the
want to know.
Yeah,
what's
Hey,
on
let's get Goldman to go buy it.
No, he probably already has 20.
original scans. For all the copies of Playboy ever made. So there you go.
Hey, David. He made it.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
there's David.
Yeah.
So Justin Morgan says they're smoking premium defective capacitors.
There we go. I think that's it. I
Yeah,
think you're right.
absolutely. Yep.
That is a great
Yep.
segue right
Yeah.
there.
They're smoking industrial espionage electrolyte.
I'm gonna have to agree with that. Nothing else I could think
I
of.
can't think of anything else either. Maybe smoking the hard drive cables or something. I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah.
But all right,
That's true.
so that's pretty much it for tonight, guys. So We're to our shameless self promotion. So any of you guys got anything going on that you in the pipeline that you're going to promote here?
Too hot to do anything. These are the months where Jay just sits down and does nothing.
Well, I'm going to be recapping a Macintosh 2CI on the weekend in a live stream. So anyone who's interested in watching a 2CI get recapped,
I'll be sure to watch it.
I'm your
and
man.
put me to sleep
I will
again.
pay attention to that because I have one. I
I'm
have
going
one
to
that
be
needs
restoring my
recapped.
cube.
I think the last
Cube?
one I watched Bruce recap, and I was like, dude, I'm going to bed. I'm getting sleepy.
There's only so many times you can watch it, aren't there? Yeah. Oh wow!
The ATA
Just
drive
taking a
by.
cap off and put another one on.
Yeah.
So what about you, Dan? Are you gonna make any videos of this stuff, or?
Yeah, I think what I really need to do first is just test some more devices. I just got I was just playing around with. I just gotten this last week, and then got the Thunderbolt 3 dock, and just playing with just whatever I had sitting around. It was at least USB 3, so I'm going to need to get some USB 3.1 Gen 2 stuff that does 10 gigabit per second, some USB-C interfaces and frankly, never really played around with any USB-C stuff. It's, I've always, all of my Macs have always been USB-A. Everything I use still uses USB-A, so I'm fine with that.
Right.
But I really need to start getting some of this higher bandwidth equipment to test it with and see. And I'll probably test the video as well and try to get the display port connection and get that link up to a display that's really going to look good. But anything I have right now is 1080p 60 hertz. I have a 4K in the wall in the living room. I guess I could bring my Mac Pro out there and try that, but I really need to upgrade the office display. And I think it'd be kind of cool if we get into that in a future episode of Mac Yak, talk about displays, because there's so much happening in that area as well.
Yeah, I think we can devote a topic on that, going from the first CRTs all the way to where we are today. I think, that'll fill up 90 minutes.
That's a whole episode plus, I think. Remember when we did our OS show? That one
I had fun with
was
that.
what 2 hours plus?
Yeah, and we forced ourselves to keep it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's see, Rocky, you got anything going on or?
Well, this weekend I've got a lot of stuff around my house that we're doing. So, I'm gonna finally try to hopefully complete this month my actual office outdoor shed building thing. So I may actually have an actual workshop for once instead of being in my office in the house with everybody else.
Nice. All right, guys. Anything else before we wrap things up here?
Nope.
All right, guys.
Everybody have a happy 4th of July for those that celebrate.
Yeah, and for the Canadians, yesterday, I believe, was
Canada
Day.
Yeah.
So, late happy Canada Day.
All right, so guys.
Bruce, do you guys have a day like that?
Our day is obviously, if we're comparing it to 4th of July, ours is 26th of January, so ours has been and gone.
There you go.
Okay, we'll catch you on the next one.
Yeah.
So guys, make sure you like and subscribe to this video. Remember, we only go out live once a week. You're not going to get a whole lot of notifications. Make sure you hit that bell icon. Also, we have a Discord server. The Discord link is right there on the bottom of the screen. Make sure you go ahead and join that and join in the chat there. So, guys, it's been a good night, and
thanks for joining us, Dan.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thank you. We'll catch you guys next week. See ya.
See ya.